Hey, Carl. What's up, Finn? Are we doing another one of those long jokes? Well, of course, all year. You think they're working out? No idea, but you know how the producer is. He gets something that he wants to do and he just kind of sticks with it. Oh, alright. Well, what is, today's thing? Well, I call it the desert. Zoom in.
Two men were stranded in the desert, lost, wandering, and dying of dehydration. They had been lost when a dust storm startled their camels, and they ran away. Due to the dust storm, they became lost and disoriented and had no map or landmarks to orient them to how far they had traveled or from which direction. Why these two set off in the desert is beyond me. Perhaps it was a misguided adventure or an attempt to find something elusive. As they trudged through the scorching sands, their lips cracked and their throats begged for moisture. Their minds started to play tricks on them. The relentless sun beat down on them, casting wavering mirages that danced on the horizon. Every step became an arduous struggle as the seemingly endless expanse of the desert stretched out before them, devoid of any relief. The heat waves distorted the landscape. It was impossible for them to discern between reality and illusion. The mirages taunted them with the promise of an oasis that never materialized. With each passing moment, their situation grew increasingly dire. The scarcity of shade intensified the oppressive heat, and their energy waned. The mirages, now morphing into surreal shapes and figures, played tricks on their desperate minds. They began to question their own perceptions, unsure if the shimmering pools of water were real or just figments of their dehydrated imagination. Time seemed to stretch, elongating their suffering as they pressed on, their thirst becoming an all-consuming torment. As the men continued their aimless trek, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that offered little respite. The temperature, though slightly cooler, provided no relief from the relentless thirst that gripped them. The distant sound of shifting sands and the haunting echoes of the desert only intensified their feelings of isolation. Each step forward felt like an eternity, and the hope of finding water began to fade like a fleeting mirage. In the vast emptiness of the desert, the two men were left with only their own thoughts and the distant echoes of the world they once knew. The stark beauty of the landscape, once captivating, now seemed like an unending and unforgiving expanse. The unforgiving nature of the desert forced them to confront their vulnerability, a stark realization that added a layer of despair to their already dire circumstances. Finding themselves with no other choice, they kept walking, and eventually saw something on the horizon. Initially, they thought it to be a mirage, another hallucination brought on by their intense thirst. But as they got closer, it became apparent that it was not a mirage, but instead a marketplace. They decided to stop at the first stall and ask for some water. They arrive at the first stall and say to the manager, "Listen, we're going to die of dehydration if we don't get water soon. We really need some, but we have no money. However, we could pay for it in other ways. Can you give us some water, please?" The manager replies, "No, sorry, I don't have any water. However, what I do have is this sponge cake topped with jelly and fruit." The men decline this dessert and go to the next stall. At the next stall, the men again ask, "Can you give us some water? We desperately need it, but can't pay for it with money. However, we can work the debt off. What do you say?" The owner says, "Sorry, I can't do that for you, as this stall has no water to sell. However, I can offer you this sponge cake topped with fruit and jelly." Again, the men decline the cake and head to the next stall. At this point, they've become a bit frustrated with these seemingly random stalls and simply say to the owner, "Look, mate, we're dying of thirst. Do you have any water you can give us?" "No," says the owner, "but what I do have is this sponge cake, covered with not only fruit and jelly, but also whipped cream." The men go to every stall in the market, but none of them have any water for them. Yet they are all stocked with sponge cakes, topped with jelly and fruit. Eventually, the men reach the end of the market and they see an endless stretch of more desert ahead of them. One of them looks back and says, "That was a bit odd, wasn't it? A marketplace in the middle of the desert, and yet every stall only had sponge cake, topped with jelly, fruit, and whipped cream to sell." "Yeah," the other said, "it's a trifle bizarre."
Wow. I hated all of that. Yeah, another satisfied customer. Well, top commenters, time for your weekly check-in. Hey, what's your favorite kind of sweet cake trifle? Let us know. We don't find your favorite foods trifling. Don't forget, all you new people, if you're even still here, I doubt it, like and subscribe. Or unsubscribe. Whichever. I think there's a merch store still, you can buy something. Have fun. Stay safe out there, and see you next week.